Hi, welcome to No Idea. I'm Whitney.
I'm Kevin.
I
I didn't know if you were
thought
going to
I,
say it or not.
I thought I would let you introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Today we're going to talk about metrics that matter.
Yeah.
So catchy.
I like it. I like the alliteration.
So, what should you look for when you are really forming your strategy for social media, whether it's posts or ads, anything that you're doing online
hmm
on social media? What should you look for in your insights, or if you use software, what should you actually look for that makes a difference?
That's right. And I think a lot of times and we've talked about this before, people get caught up in the quote unquote vanity metrics of how many likes or how many reactions did this post get. And those are part of it, but there's so much more to it that you kind of have to dig in and really understand and maybe even reroute your strategy when you look at how some of these play out.
I kind of laughed because I call them vanity metrics,
Yes.
but I probably should stop because they do play a role
hmm
in, you know, the traffic that you're going to get and your page growth and all of those things. So, though you shouldn't look at them independently, you still need to look at them as a whole, and they do play a, a good part
hmm
of your strategy and that story that it tells. So, I probably should not say vanity, but I think the first one is obviously
Sure.
impressions.
hmm
I think most people know that, but that is just how many times it's being viewed and being delivered.
That's right. And you can get into for Facebook especially, but I think pretty much all of the social media platforms have an insight section that you can click onto. Twitter is a little harder to find, but Instagram and Facebook make it pretty easy. That it's all pretty much right there on your like page or what if you have a business profile on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, these things, I think overall, impressions and reach, people know. Like,
hmm
we know where to look at that. We know that that's telling us how many people we're actually getting our message in front of. But engagement rate is something that I think people know less about or pay attention to less. And that's just the number of followers who are actually engaging, that percentage, what percentage of people are actually engaging with my post. So it's one thing to see it, but it's another thing for people to actually take action,
Right.
which is the whole point.
And that's where I guess some of the vanity metrics come into play. You know, you are posting something, and you obviously want people to react to it and like it or love it or do whatever
Angry
emoji they have
faced.
they have for it, and then obviously leave a comment too. And that's where we encourage a lot of our postings to have a question or something that is going to entice the person that's following along to respond in some sort of way other than just that reaction of the icon on Facebook.
Yeah, so always look at your engagement rate. You're going to have an overall engagement rate, and then you'll have an engagement rate per post. And if you look at that per post, you can really see what content is working so that you can create more of that. But going into engagement,
hmm
obviously, we talk about the vanity, but what makes it important is that it gives you a real feel of what people are thinking when they see your content. Isn't even the very small action of clicking.
hmm
When you get into reactions on Facebook, if somebody is scrolling over to do a specific reaction, it's a little bit more
hmm
of, a thought process involved. But the very baseline, it's enough to make somebody want to engage with you at the very base level,
Yeah.
so you can kind of gauge content on that.
Bust a myth or confirm a rumor. Does it matter? Is there a difference? Does Facebook weigh the reactions differently? I had been told at one point that a like was just kind of basic, but if you clicked love or laughed at something, it got a better lift, a better boost in the Facebook world.
I have they Facebook says no,
Yeah,
but then anything that we've ever tested also says
yeah,
no. A reaction is simply a like. But you are giving people more, there's more ways for people to say how they feel about your content. So if you're getting a bunch of angry faces, which really burns me to my core when there's an angry face, because
Don't angry face this video. Or
please,
do. I'm
if
just
you
kidding.
angry face it, just
Explain
tell me
why.
why.
Yes.
Like, if you're mad at me, I just want to know why.
that
That's
that's
it.
that is good. That is a good thing to yeah, I
I
agree.
probably won't even argue with you because I do make people mad, but just tell me why. But
Yeah.
the angry face, and again, we're getting into positive and negative reactions. If they engage with your post, doesn't matter if it's an angry face or a love, it is still engagement.
Mhm.
And more so when somebody engages with your page, even at that basic level, you can retarget them, and that is very important if you're running ads.
Yes. And it kind of also kind of segues into the comments, whether it's a positive comment or yeah, obviously you want people to react positively to your content, but there are those that, may point out flaws or problems or things as well. And it's important to respond and react to all comments. We kind of, even if it's just a reactionary like on a comment, we always respond to the comments that are posted as well.
Yeah, I mean, the people that like your page and follow you, they're probably not going to have a lot of bad things to say. Now, if there is a bad experience within your store or with your service or product, that's where they may mention something, but you also want to know those. So don't hide from that. You learn from those, and then you can also make somebody happy. You can turn a bad experience into a good one by paying attention to those comments. And comments do weigh more in an algorithm than reactions or likes. So you always want to encourage conversation. It's a social network, that's what it's made for. But when you encourage conversation, make sure you are monitoring it and being engaged.
Absolutely. Like, you know, Whitney said, you don't want to post something, put it out there, and then just let it sit and not do any kind of follow up with it. That's the, you know, obviously getting the message out there is important, but then listening to those who are responding to your message is just as important because that's where the follow-up conversations happen. And like Whitney mentioned as well, it's going to help in the overall algorithm when those conversations are going on those posts.
And then I think there's the holy grail of engagements, which is a share. So that really speaks more volumes, because not only does somebody like your content and believe in you, but they want to share with their audience and their friends and their family that your content. So that it's almost like a personal recommendation,
Hmm.
and just as powerful as word of mouth, because it is your word.
Yeah.
um, Again, that's why you need to be careful about everything that you share, because when you do, it becomes your word. So just make sure you know what you are sharing. But really, that's what you aim for when you create content, is those shareable
Hmm.
pieces.
Yeah, and we always encourage, we do it here on Idea Creative Posts, but also, when you have a team, encourage them to share those messages too. And obviously, you know, some of the things that are posted on a business page may not fit the narrative or to the same agreements, not agreements, the same viewpoints that your employees have. But when there are those shareable moments, take advantage of that because, again, it's reinforcing and reaffirming what you're putting out there, and it's making an impression on other people. I may not follow your business, but if my friend is an employee there and shares the post, I'm going to look at it and, just even out of that relationship, give it a look and maybe even share it myself. So there's a lot of value in encouraging your team members to also share and not just the people that are following your page.
And then we kind of move into clicks.
Hmm.
Obviously, you want people to click on your content and click to your website. or your blog, whatever it is, you want to capture them into, your audience so that you can retarget them, but also they can learn more about you.
Hmm.
And so clicks are important, but more so your click through rate. And that is how many people are clicking through to your content directly to your what you're delivering.
Hmm.
So either your website or your blog, maybe it's a contact form, a lead form. You always want to make that overall objective something that is directly linked to you.
And what is your rule or your school of thought on, should there always be something to click on a post, whether it's a picture or a video or just text? Do you always recommend clicking
Yeah.
something? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you always want to, again, encourage people to engage further with your brand or your message or anything that you put out there. So, again, if it can't be tied back to what you do or your services, your product, you should probably think about why you're posting it. And sometimes it just, you're like, I want to share this because it's important to me or it's funny,
Hmm.
but it doesn't directly tie back to you. And that's fine. You want to show personality, but as much as you can, you want to also tie it directly to your goods or services or your brand, your
Yeah.
personalities, your team. Uh, you always want to be building on branding.
Yeah. And it's important too to, if you're sharing an article about something within your industry, but it's another business that is writing that article, find a way to make that your own and direct people back to your site, because otherwise you're just kind of making someone else the expert and you're just the one sharing that message. So you always want to kind of be that voice that people are going to trust and turn to as well.
Yeah, and again, it's not that you are going to be directly relatable with every single thing, but you can make it
Hmm.
relatable to what you do and your services. If you're sharing a lot, I share a lot of company culture um, articles. So when I do that, it's very easy for me to share Idea Creative because we instill all of those principles.
Hmm.
Uh, well, the ones that I like anyway. Um, and we tie it back to why would you want to work here? So just be thinking about your content and building that brand. And speaking of building, then we get into mentions.
Hmm. Mentions are valuable as well, because it is, once again, if they're not necessarily sharing your content but they mention you in a post, if it's something that they're coming up with, we've seen it before. You've probably done it yourself, where you had good service somewhere, so you mention that business or brand, on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and then that just gives another viewpoint or another way to uh, make your message reach out even further to people that may not necessarily know who you are.
Yeah, and as a marketer, when you get mentions, one, it's social listening. You should be doing it. It tells you what you're doing great, what you need to work on, your weaknesses, your competitors. Everything you need to know um, can be told by social listening.
Hmm.
So you always want to be mentioned. It tells people that, one, you think of them. So obviously, we always want it in a personal light, and those experiences that people have all the time, know that whatever experience you put out there, whether it's in your store or directly with a product or a customer, you could be seeing somebody at the grocery store, and they can tie it back to you. So you always want to be aware that that happens,
Hmm.
but also it's a very big compliment to be mentioned
Hmm.
because you are top of mind. People know you. They want to engage with you. They want to tell their friends about you. It is like all of the things that we look for combined. It is what you build up to, and reviews, obviously, photos. your product. And then when you are following and you are listening and you engage with those people that are mentioning you, you can build a user generated campaign off of that. And, tourism, you see it a lot
Yeah.
where people tag the location or they tag you or they use certain hashtags. All of that is very searchable. And if you pay attention and you listen to what people are saying and you're following your brand and those hashtags that are relevant to you, you can build an entire campaign of things, photos, videos, reviews that you don't have to pay for, all because people want your brand to succeed and they want to be involved and be engaged with you and your brand.
Yeah, and same advice applies to you as you're sharing content as well. Mention other businesses or brands, and you could build collaborations. You could reach new audiences because a lot of times it's a courtesy thing. If I mention such and such business, then a lot of times they'll respond in kind and maybe retweet or repost or reshare something that we've said, complimentary towards them. So it all kind of works out as, you want to encourage people to mention you, but you also in turn want to mention some of those other brands that, not your competitors, of course, but those that you could collaborate with or work in tandem with.
Yeah, it is networking,
Hmm.
but it's online and on social channels. So, I mean, all of those things you need to look at and they help guide your strategy. They don't do it for you. But if you look at all of them and look at their role in everything, then you can determine what content is working, what content you need to develop, where you're strong, where you're weak, and you can create an excellent strategy. It also leads into where you should be advertising, what method of advertising, what kind of advertising, whether it's writing blogs or long form content or short or video. It tells you based on the kind of things that you post about and people are interacting with. So, paying attention to these metrics, one, they do matter and they can make your job much easier as long as you know what to do with them when you see them and what weight you should really put on each one.
Yeah, some really good advice there. And if you guys have questions or comments about strategy of any kind, whether it's the metrics that matter or any other topic that we've talked about in the past, just let us know right here on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, um, and our website, of course, ideacreativemarketing.com.
Or you can call us.
That's right, 5290969.
And that's it. That's all I've got.
All right, that's it for this week.
Bye, guys.